This story is titled, My Sister Got Me Excluded from Christmas Because I'm Just a Plumber. So I cut off her law school money that I was paying for, now she is begging. Hey everyone! Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Okay, so I've been sitting on this story for a while, trying to figure out how to even start explaining this mess. I guess I should introduce myself first. I'm 32, single, and I run my own plumbing business. Yeah, I know, not the most glamorous job according to some people, like my family. But honestly, I make really good money, and I actually love what I do. There's something satisfying about solving problems and helping people, even if it means dealing with their literal shit sometimes, lol. My sister Amanda is 26 and currently in law school, which I've been paying for. Yeah, you read that right. I've been covering her full tuition since she started. Her boyfriend was this hotshot doctor at the local hospital. Real piece of work, that guy, but we'll get to him later. So here's where everything went sideways. About a week before Christmas, I get this call from my mom. Now, you gotta understand something about my mom. She never calls just to chat or check on me. It's always because she wants something or there's some kind of family situation that needs handling, usually involving money tbh. But this call was different. She starts off with this weird, hesitant voice, like when someone's about to tell you your dog died or something. Then she drops this bomb on me. I'm not invited to Christmas this year, just like that. No warning, no discussion, nothing. At first, I thought I must have heard her wrong. Like, maybe she was saying they were changing the date or something? But nope. She goes on with this whole speech about how it might be best if you sit this one out, and we want to keep things comfortable for everyone. I'm sitting there thinking, what the actual fuck? Because this is coming out of nowhere. We've always done Christmas together, even during those years when I was working crazy hours getting my business off the ground. Sure, my family's always been kind of weird about my job. They love the money I make from it, but God forbid they actually tell anyone what their son brother does for a living. So I press her on it, right? Like, what's the real reason? That's when she starts hemming and hawing, talking in circles about professional appearances and considering everyone's comfort. But she wouldn't give me a straight answer. It wasn't until later that day that I found out the real reason from my cousin Sarah. She'd overheard Amanda talking about it with our mom earlier that week. Apparently, my dear sister had told our parents that having me at Christmas would make things uncomfortable because I didn't fit in well with her and her boyfriend's professional status. Let that sink in for a minute. My own sister, who I've been putting through fucking law school, was embarrassed to have me at Christmas because I'm just a plumber. She was worried what her fancy doctor boyfriend would think about having to sit at the same table as someone who works with their hands for a living. The more I thought about it, the more things started clicking into place. Like how Amanda never invited me to any of her law school events, even though I was the one paying for her to be there. Or how she'd always change the subject when her friends asked what her brother did for work. Or how she'd never introduced me to her boyfriend, even though they'd been dating for almost a year. And you know what the worst part was? My parents agreed with her. They actually thought it was reasonable to exclude their own son from Christmas because his job might make their precious daughter's boyfriend uncomfortable. The same son who's been helping support the family since he was 18. The same son who started his own successful business from scratch. The same son who's been paying their golden child's law school tuition without complaining. My mom tried to sugarcoat it with stuff like, well, honey, you know how these professional circles are. And maybe next year when you've developed your career more. Like, what the fuck does that even mean? I own my own business. I have employees. I make six figures doing honest work. But apparently that's not developed enough because I don't wear a suit and tie to work. I spent that whole day just sitting with this information, getting more and more pissed off. Not even the hot, angry kind of pissed off. More like this cold, calm realization that my family, especially my sister, had been using me while being ashamed of me this whole time. That's when I decided enough was enough. If I was too embarrassing to have at Christmas dinner, then my money should be too embarrassing to pay for law school. I mean, what kind of message would it send to my sister's fancy boyfriend if he found out her law degree was being funded by Gasp a Plumber? But hold up, this is just the beginning. The real shit show started when I decided to do something about it. And let me tell you, karma's a bitch, especially when it comes with a side of student loan debt. So after finding out I was banned from Christmas because my blue-collar job might offend my sister's boyfriend's delicate sensibilities, I was in this weird headspace. You know that feeling when you're so angry that you actually loop back around to being weirdly calm? That's where I was at. I spent that whole night going through old text messages and conversations with Amanda, and holy shit, guys, the signs were everywhere. I was just too blind, or maybe too stupid, to see them. Like, there was this time last spring when she was having a graduation party for finishing her first year of law school. I'd literally paid for that entire year, but somehow I didn't get an invite. When I asked her about it, she fed me some BS about it being just a small thing with her study group. Found out later from Facebook, it was actually a pretty big party at some fancy restaurant downtown. Then there was the time she needed a new laptop for school. She asked me to just transfer the money to her account instead of coming with her to pick it out, even though I actually know a lot about computers. Kind of need to these days. Even in plumbing, we use tablets and special software for job quotes and scheduling. She said it was because she was too busy to go shopping together, but now I'm pretty sure she just didn't want to be seen with her plumber brother at the Apple store. Looking back, it's kind of fucking hilarious in a sad way. Like, every time she needed money, which was a lot, she had no problem texting her embarrassing blue-collar brother. But when it came to actually acknowledging my existence in her fancy new life, radio silence. I decided to do some digging. Perks of having a cousin who's still in the family group chat LOL. Turns out Amanda had been planning this Christmas exclusion for weeks. She told our parents that her boyfriend Craig, yes, of course his name is Craig, came from this super prestigious family, and she was worried about making a good impression. Apparently, having a plumber brother might damage her professional prospects, or some elitist bullshit like that. Want to know the real kicker? My cousin Sarah, bless her messy, drama-loving heart, sent me screenshots of Amanda's messages in the family chat. She'd actually written, and I'm quoting this shit directly, "I just don't want Craig to think our family isn't, educated. It could affect how his family sees me, and they have so many connections in the legal world." Educated. Fucking educated. I wanted to reply and remind her that the reason she's getting educated is because her uneducated plumber brother is paying $43,000 a year in tuition. But I held back. I was starting to form a plan, and sometimes you gotta play the long game. The more I thought about it, the more I realized this wasn't just about Christmas. This was about years of my family, especially Amanda, treating me like their dirty little secret. They were happy to take my dirty plumber money, but God forbid they actually acknowledge how I earned it. Here's a fun fact about plumbing that most people don't know. We actually have to study a lot, like years of apprenticeship, licensing exams, continuing education to keep up with new regulations and technology. I've probably spent more hours studying water systems and building codes than Amanda has spent studying tort law. But because I work with my hands, they act like I'm some kind of idiot who couldn't hack it in the real professional world. The truth is, I chose plumbing because I'm good at it, and I saw an opportunity. Started working as an apprentice right out of high school, learned everything I could, got my licenses, and eventually started my own business. Now I have 3 trucks on the road, 2 full-time employees, and more work than I can handle. But to my family, I'm still just the embarrassing brother who fixes toilets. I kept thinking about all those times I stayed late at jobs or took on extra work to make sure I could cover Amanda's tuition payments. All those times I skipped buying new things for myself or putting more into my retirement account because family comes first. Meanwhile, she was actively trying to hide my existence from her new boyfriend and his family. That's when my cousin dropped another bomb on me. Apparently, Craig's family wasn't even that stuck up about this kind of thing. His own uncle was a successful contractor who built their family home. Amanda had just assumed they'd look down on me because I guess that's just how she sees me. I sat with all this information for a couple days, watching the family group chat through Sarah. They'd removed me from it weeks ago, supposedly to avoid any awkwardness about Christmas plans. Amanda was going on and on about how excited she was to host Craig for Christmas dinner, how his family had connections at all these big law firms in the city, how this could be her chance to secure a summer internship through his contacts. The whole time, not one person, not my parents, not my other relatives, stood up for me. Not one person said, "Hey, maybe we shouldn't exclude the guy who's been supporting Amanda through school." They were all just excited about the possibility of Amanda landing a fancy internship through her boyfriend's family. That's when I knew exactly what I had to do. If they wanted to pretend they didn't have a plumber in the family, I'd help them make that fiction a reality, starting with Amanda's tuition payments. So after stewing over all this BS for a couple of days, I decided it was time to make my move. But here's the thing. I didn't want to just send an angry text or whatever. I wanted to do this in a way that would make it impossible for them to twist my words or make me look like the bad guy, which, BTW, is my family's favorite hobby. I waited until I knew Amanda's next tuition payment was coming up. It was due in like 2 weeks, and she always got super nervous about it around this time. Usually, she'd start dropping these subtle hints about remembering the payment date, like, Oh, the school's been sending reminder emails or whatever. But this time, radio silence. Guess she thought the payment would just magically appear like it always did, even after they'd uninvited me from Christmas. Quick side note, I'd been paying these tuition bills directly to the school through their online portal. Amanda had set it up herself when she started, gave me all the login info and everything. Really convenient when she saw me as her personal ATM, right? Anyway, I logged into the portal and saw the upcoming payment, $21,500 for the spring semester. That's when it hit me just how much money I'd been throwing at her education while she was actively trying to hide my existence from her boyfriend. Like, do you know how many toilets you gotta fix to make that kind of money? Answer: a lot fucking more than most people think. So I called Amanda. Not texted, called. Because I wanted to hear her voice when I dropped this bomb. She picked up on the third ring, sounding annoyed like I was interrupting something important. Hey, she said, in that tone that screams make it quick. I'm kind of in the middle of something. Oh, sorry, I said, trying to sound casual. Just wanted to talk about your tuition payment. It's due soon, right? The change in her voice was instant. Suddenly, she was all sweet and interested. Oh yeah, thanks for remembering. It's due on the 15th. You're still okay to cover it, right? Actually, I said, I've been thinking about what you told Mom and Dad about Christmas, about how having a plumber brother might embarrass you in front of Craig and his family. Dead silence on her end. Like, you could practically hear her brain short-circuiting as she tried to figure out how to spin this. That's not, who told you that? She finally spluttered. Does it matter? I asked. Is it true or not? More silence. Then she tried to go into damage control mode. Listen, you don't understand. Craig's family, they're really particular about these things. His father's a judge. His mother's on all these charity boards. I just thought it would be better if you pretended your brother doesn't exist, I finished for her. Because he's just a lowly plumber? That's not fair, she protested. I never said that. I need them to take me seriously if I want to have a future in law. You know how these circles work. I couldn't help but laugh. Actually, I don't know how these circles work. I'm just a plumber, remember? But you know what I do know? The exact amount I've paid for your law school so far. Want me to break it down for you? She started to say something, but I kept going. First year, $43,000. Second year, first semester, $21,500. Plus all those extra expenses, your laptop, your textbooks, that special study program you just had to have. By my math, that's about $70,000 so far. All paid for by your embarrassing plumber brother. Why are you being like this? She whined. You know how important this is for my future. Craig's family has connections at all the top firms. And having a plumber brother would ruin that? I asked. Even though that plumber brother is the only reason you're in law school in the first place? You promised to help me, she shot back. You said you'd support my dreams. That's when I dropped the bomb. Yeah, I did. When you were proud to call me your brother. But if I'm too embarrassing to have at Christmas dinner, then I guess my money should be too embarrassing to pay for your tuition. You guys. The screech that came out of her mouth, like a pterodactyl getting its tail stepped on. You can't do that, she yelled. The payment's due in 2 weeks. What am I supposed to do? I don't know, I said, feeling weirdly calm. Maybe ask Craig? I'm sure his fancy doctor salary could cover it. Or is my dirty plumber money the only kind you're willing to touch? She started crying then, like full-on dramatic sobbing. Please, she begged. I'll tell Mom and Dad I was wrong. You can come to Christmas. Just please don't do this to me. No, I said. I don't want to come to Christmas. I don't want to embarrass you in front of Craig and his family. In fact, I don't want anything to do with any of you anymore. Consider this my last payment to the family that's ashamed of me. I hung up while she was still crying and begging. Blocked her number right after. Then I poured myself a drink and waited for the shitstorm I knew was coming. After that, it all started. First was my mom. She called like 5 times in a row before I finally picked up. The second I answered, she started in with the guilt trips. Her specialty, BTW. She was crying about how I was destroying the family and ruining Amanda's future over a silly misunderstanding. Silly misunderstanding? I said. She literally told you she was ashamed of what I do for a living. The same job that's been paying her tuition, by the way. She didn't mean it like that, Mom insisted. You know how Amanda is, she just gets caught up in trying to impress people sometimes. She looks up to you. I almost choked on my drink. Looks up to me? She literally got me banned from Christmas because she's embarrassed by me. How the hell is that looking up to me? Then Mom tried a different approach. Think about what this will do to her relationship with Craig. His family could really help her career. Oh, now you want to talk about Craig? I cut her off. Funny how him and his family are so important, But your own son isn't even good enough to sit at the Christmas table. She started blubbering about how that's not what we meant, and how I was taking everything too personally. Classic mom move. Try to make me feel like I'm overreacting when they're the ones being awful. Then my dad called. He went straight for the angry approach. No surprise there. Started yelling about how I was being selfish and vindictive. Called me a little shit for threatening Amanda's education. Real father of the year material, right? Let me get this straight, I said to him. I'm a little shit for not wanting to pay thousands of dollars to someone who's ashamed of me? Make that make sense, Dad. We raised you better than this, he growled. Family supports family. Really? I shot back. Is that what you were doing when you agreed to exclude me from Christmas? Was that supporting family? He actually tried to defend that. Said some BS about how sometimes we have to make sacrifices for the greater good of the family. Apparently, the greater good meant kissing Craig's ass in hopes he'd help Amanda's career. Here's the thing that really got me, though. Not once during any of these calls did anyone apologize for how they'd treated me. It was all about how I was wrong for standing up for myself, how I was being petty and vindictive, how I was letting my pride get in the way of family. Then came the flying monkeys. My aunt called to tell me how disappointed she was in my behavior. My uncle texted saying I needed to man up and be the bigger person. Even my cousin Sarah, the one who told me about Amanda's lies, messaged me saying maybe I was taking things too far. But you know what none of them offered? To help pay Amanda's tuition themselves. Funny how that works, right? They all had opinions about what I should do with my money, but none of them were opening their own wallets. The best part? Amanda actually went and told Craig what was happening. I guess she thought he'd offer to help with the tuition. Instead, according to Sarah, who's still keeping me in the loop, he got really quiet and started asking questions. Like, why hadn't Amanda ever mentioned she had a brother? Why hadn't she introduced them? Why was her brother paying for her law school in the first place? Apparently, this led to their first big fight. Craig couldn't understand why Amanda would hide her brother's existence just because he was a plumber. Turns out his uncle, the one who built their family home, started as a plumber before becoming a contractor. Craig had actually worked summers with him during high school. When Amanda tried to explain her reasoning, she just dug herself deeper. She started talking about professional appearances and social circles, and Craig got more and more upset. He said he couldn't believe she'd hide and disrespect her own brother, who'd been supporting her education, just because of some perceived social status bullshit. The next day, Craig told her he needed time to think about their relationship. He said her behavior showed a side of her character he wasn't comfortable with. Who knew the guy actually had some principles? Meanwhile, my parents were still blowing up my phone. Mom switched between crying and begging. Dad between yelling and threatening. Amanda kept trying to call from different numbers since I'd blocked hers. I finally just turned my phone off for a few days. You know what's crazy? In all this drama, not one person stopped to consider maybe they were the ones in the wrong. It was all about how I was ruining everything by not just shutting up and paying like a good little ATM. But I was done being their ATM. If standing up for myself made me the bad guy in their eyes, then fine. I'd be the bad guy. Better than being their doormat. After a few days, Craig came over to Amanda's apartment. She probably thought he was there to make up, but nope. He broke up with her. Said he couldn't be with someone who'd treat their own brother that way, especially someone who'd supported them so much. Said it made him question her values and what kind of person she really was. Amanda. Lost. Her. Shit. She called me crying and screaming from yet another new number. Girls got more burner phones than a drug dealer at this point. Said I'd ruined everything. That Craig broke up with her because of me. That her life was falling apart, and it was all my fault. I just laughed and said, "No, sis. Craig broke up with you because he found out who you really are. I just stopped helping you hide it." She started threatening then. Said she'd tell everyone I'd sexually harassed her in high school, WTF. Said she'd report my business to the BBB for fraud. Said she'd make sure everyone knew what a horrible brother I was. Go ahead, I told her. Tell everyone your brother's a monster because he checks notes paid for your education while you tried to hide his existence. See how that works out for you. Then she switched back to begging. Started crying about how she couldn't afford law school without me. How she'd have to drop out. How she'd lose all her friends. How her life would be over. Guess you should have thought about that before you decided I was too embarrassing to acknowledge, I said, and hung up. So after Craig dumped her, Amanda went into what I can only describe as a full mental breakdown. Sarah told me she started showing up at our parents' house at random hours, crying about how her life was over. She'd apparently told all her law school friends that her boyfriend was going to help her with tuition, so when he dumped her instead, she was completely screwed. The deadline for the tuition payment was getting closer, and she still hadn't figured out what to do. She tried applying for emergency loans, but guess what? Those take time to process, and she'd left it way too late. Plus, she'd need a cosigner, and our parents' credit is garbage. Wonder why when they keep trying to live beyond their means. Then she tried something that honestly shocked even me. She showed up at my business. Like, physically came to where I work to make a scene. I was in the middle of talking to one of my employees about a big commercial job we'd just landed when Sarah texted me. 911. Amanda just posted on FB that she's heading to your shop to make you face what you're doing to her. She seems unhinged. I barely had time to warn my guys before she came bursting through the door like a hurricane in designer clothes. Hair all messy, makeup running, full crazy ex-girlfriend energy, except she was my sister. "How dare you do this to me?" she screamed in front of my whole staff and like 3 customers. "I'm your sister. You're supposed to take care of me." I tried to get her to go outside or at least lower her voice, but nope. She was determined to make a scene. "You're ruining my life," she kept screaming. "All because your precious feelings got hurt. You're so selfish." One of my customers, this sweet old lady who's been with us for years, actually spoke up. "Young lady," she said, "is this the brother who's been paying for your education?" Amanda spun around like she'd been slapped. "That's none of your business." "Well," the old lady continued, "you just made it everyone's business by bursting in here screaming. And from what I'm hearing, you got your brother excluded from Christmas because you were ashamed of his job. But you still expect him to pay for your schooling? Honey, where I come from, we call that biting the hand that feeds you." Y'all, the look on Amanda's face. She literally didn't know how to handle someone calling her out on her BS who wasn't family. But she recovered quick and switched to crying. Like full-on theatrical sobbing. "You don't understand. He's doing this to punish me. He's trying to ruin my future because he's jealous of my success." I couldn't help but laugh. What success, Amanda? The success of getting your boyfriend to dump you? The success of maybe having to drop out of law school? The success of making a fool of yourself in front of my employees and customers? "At least I'm trying to make something of myself," she shot back. "Not just playing with pipes all day like some... She actually stopped herself, probably realizing she was about to insult plumbing in front of a bunch of plumbers. My senior employee, Mike, stepped forward then. He's this big dude who's been with me since I started the business. "Ma'am," he said in this dead serious voice, "I think you should leave now. Your brother's playing with pipes has put food on my family's table for the past 5 years. It's paid for my kids' braces and my wife's car. And apparently it's been paying for your law school too. So maybe show a little respect." Amanda looked around and finally seemed to realize she wasn't getting the reaction she'd hoped for. Everyone was staring at her like she was crazy, which honestly, she kind of was at this point. She tried one last time. "Fine. I'll tell everyone what kind of brother you really are. I'll post about this all over social media." "Go ahead," I said. "Make sure you include the part where you got me banned from Christmas because you were ashamed of my job, but still expected me to pay your tuition. I'm sure that'll get you lots of sympathy." She stormed out after that, but not before knocking over our sign-in clipboard and kicking a display of business cards off the counter. "Real mature, sis." The old lady customer came up to me after Amanda left, patted my arm and said, "You know, my late husband was a plumber. Put all 3 of our kids through college. Never once did they act ashamed of what he did for a living." Then she looked me dead in the eye and said, "You're doing the right thing, honey. Sometimes family needs to learn the hard way that respect is a two-way street." After that whole scene, I had to sit down with my employees and explain the situation. They were surprisingly cool about it. Mike even joked that his family's Thanksgiving drama seemed boring in comparison. So after the whole meltdown at my shop, Amanda decided to go nuclear. She started calling every single member of our extended family, telling them this sob story about how her cruel brother was trying to destroy her future out of spite. But here's the thing about family drama. Everyone loves to get involved, but nobody wants to actually help. First up was Aunt Karen. Yes, that's actually her name, and yes, she lives up to it. She called me all fired up about family responsibility and how I was being selfish. This is the same aunt who borrowed $5,000 from me 3 years ago for emergency dental work and somehow never got around to paying it back. The conversation went something like this. "How could you do this to your sister?" she demanded. "She's trying to better herself." "Funny," I said. "I don't remember you offering to help pay for her law school. You still owe me for those teeth of yours, by the way." Dead silence. Then, that's different. And how dare you bring that up? Is it different? Because from where I'm standing, this whole family loves talking about helping each other until it's time to actually help. Then suddenly, everyone's real quiet. She hung up on me after that. Guess the truth hurts worse than those teeth did. Then came Uncle Steve, my dad's brother. He's this wannabe big shot who's always talking about his investment portfolio, but somehow never has money when the restaurant bill comes. He tried to lecture me about investing in family. Think of it as an investment in your sister's future, he said. When she's a successful lawyer, she'll be able to help you. I laughed so hard at that. Help me? She couldn't even stand to have me at Christmas dinner because I'm a plumber. But sure, tell me more about how she'll help me when she's successful. Well, he stuttered, maybe you could help her finish school and she could pay you back. Great idea, I said. Why don't you loan her the money then? You're always talking about your amazing investments. Here's a chance to invest in family. Suddenly, he had to go. Amazing how that keeps happening. The best part? Not one person who called to guilt trip me offered to actually help Amanda themselves. They all had opinions about what I should do with my money, but their own wallets stayed firmly shut. I am done with her, and I will keep you updated, guys, if anything happens. Final update, my sister got me excluded from Christmas. Because I'm just a plumber, so I cut off her law school money. Hey everyone, figured I should post one last update since so many people have been messaging me asking what happened. So I heard from a mutual friend that my sister decided to actually showed up at her ex-boyfriend's house, uninvited, and tried to talk to Craig's parents. Told them this whole sob story about how she was about to lose everything and needed help. Didn't mention the part about hiding me because I'm a plumber, obviously. Craig was there and told them the whole truth. His dad, the judge, apparently just looked at her and said, "Young lady, if you're trying to be a lawyer, you should know that attempting to manipulate people by telling half-truths is not a good start to your career." She left in tears, and that was that. Long story short, she had to drop out of law school. She couldn't get approved for private loans without a co-signer, and nobody in the family was willing to co-sign after how everything went down. Even my parents finally stopped asking me to help when Grandma got involved and told them they should be ashamed of themselves. Amanda's now working as a paralegal at some small law firm. According to Sarah, she's telling everyone it's just temporary until she can go back to law school, but we all know that's probably not happening. As for me, business is better than ever. Actually expanded to 2 more trucks and hired 4 new guys. Still meeting up with Craig and his Uncle Mike sometimes for beers. Turns out we get along great when there's no family drama involved. My parents tried to reconcile around Thanksgiving, but only because they needed help with their mortgage. I declined. Told them maybe they should ask their successful lawyer daughter for help. Oh wait, funny thing is, I actually feel better now that everything's out in the open. No more pretending, no more being the family ATM, no more walking on eggshells about my job. Just me, my successful business, and my actual friends who don't give a shit what I do for a living as long as I'm happy. Thanks for all the support, Reddit. Sometimes you need strangers on the internet to confirm you're not crazy for standing up for yourself. Edit. Holy shit, this blew up. Thanks for all the awards. And to all the people DMing me about needing a plumber in my area. Sorry, trying to stay anonymous here. Edit 2. To all the people saying I ruined my sister's life. Nah, she did that herself. I just stopped funding it.